Welcome to Unlocked with Rachel and Lauren. Today we have a very special guest, Dr. I should have practiced your last name before I got into that. Let's hear it.
We can say Kominiarek, so Kominiarek.
Kominiarek.
But the way my grandmother would say it'd be Kominiarek.
Thank you for being so patient with our technology issues. We are unlocking technology. Now we are unlocking longevity through hormone optimization.
Before we get into the good stuff here, we have a couple of rapid fire questions, and I'm just going to start. It's your last day on Earth. What's your final meal, and who's cooking it?
Me? And it's going to be a ribeye.
Yes, a man after my own heart.
That's a good one. That's
definitely going to be a ribeye.
Yeah.
It's my dinner every single night.
That's it? Just a ribeye? Are we going potatoes, or you have a drink with it?
No potatoes. Probably some olives. Ribeye and olives.
I love ribeye and olives.
That's a good combo
one of my
right there.
favorites.
I love it.
Maybe that's why my hormones are so optimized, is because I do the ribeye with the olives and some sliced apples or blueberries.
I like it. Sometimes I like dates with walnuts, like as a finisher. So I'll do a ribeye and then like a different olive mix, like Sicilian olive mix, and then I'll finish it off with like dates and walnuts.
Dates as dessert?
It's like candy.
It is like candy. What's your weirdest or most random guilty pleasure you're willing to admit on mic?
Oh no. Weirdest random guilty pleasure.
That you're willing to admit.
It would probably have to be a milkshake, because I am not good with milk. So every now and then I'll get a milkshake and I can get away with it. But if I tried to do it back to back,
kind of like rolling the dice, you don't know.
Yeah, I
little
can
Russian
get away
roulette with the dairy.
So not two milkshakes back to back, just one.
Yeah, like if I did one and then 6 months later had one, I can get away with it. But if I had milkshake on a Monday and then tried ice cream on a Saturday would not be a good day.
I love it. All right. What's something about your personality that would completely surprise people?
That's a good one, because the people who know me best, I don't think would be surprised by my different personalities. Being a Leo, I like to roam and travel a lot, and then I do like to get introspective because I'm kind of a brainiac. I like to contemplate serious problems. I don't care much for gossip. I don't care for trivial things that don't matter. I like deep conversations, and I want to problem solve bigger issues. I could care less about the trivial things in life. It just has no meaning.
Small talk is one that always exhausts me. It's like I could go 8 hours in a really deep, stimulating conversation, but if I need to chit chat for even half an hour, that part gets tiring easily.
Yeah, that gets tough. I had to go to a master's party yesterday, and listen, I like going to parties, right? But to sit there and talk about trivial nonsense for 3 or 4 hours, it's like, oh my God, I'm so tired. Can we talk about something, bigger concepts, problem solve things? So
when you're at a party and somebody asks you about hormones, do you enjoy it or are you annoyed by it? I'm off the clock.
It depends. If it's somebody that truly needs help and I can sense they need help, then I don't mind. But I've reached a stage in my life after 30 years of doing this. At times I'll have to admit, at times it's not a challenge anymore. I don't want to say I've seen it all and done it all, but the common things occur commonly. And every once in a while I get surprised. But at this stage at times I'm like, geez, I need something else to challenge me, something bigger. But yeah, I don't like just to sit around and chat about hormones.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for a long time now.
Have you ever lied and told somebody that you do something else than what you do? I have thought about that when I'm on airplanes with people, and because when they hear I do nutrition, they want to tell me all about their diet. Uber drivers are the worst.
All the time. I never tell anybody what I do. Never.
I need to start doing that. Because now I give everyone
a long time ago.
Nutrition advice, and I know all my Uber drivers' diets.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to dive into unlocking longevity through hormone optimization. We are going to dive into a little bit of hormone talk today, but it won't be like small talk at a party.
If I agree to it, then I'm good with it.
All right.
So I would love for you to just start and take us all the way back to the moment when you first realized the profound impact that hormones have on overall health. What's the moment that understanding like unlocked in you?
It was back in the mid 90s, like 1996, 1997, somewhere in that time frame. It was, I was running an urgent care that was maybe 30 miles from the nearest hospital, and this young man had been in a motorcycle accident and had lost his testicles in the accident and felt terrible. And so after a physical exam and everything, it was like, oh, this kid's going to need testosterone. He's 23 years old and he's going to need to go on this. And if you put yourself back in 1996, 97, internet is in its infancy. It's not like you could just go Google something because it didn't exist. You had to go to the medical libraries, put in a request for information. It would take 2 to 3 weeks to find something. You had an andrology book. You had Harrison's textbook of internal medicine. You had some endocrinology books, and they all said pretty much the same thing. So it was like, oh, okay, so this kid's going to need testosterone. And I started him on testosterone. And he'd feel good for a week, then he felt bad for a week, and he felt good for a week, and he felt bad for a week. And I thought, God, this is a terrible way to live. So how am I going to solve this problem? And everywhere I turned, it was the same answer. Testosterone, cypionate, 200 milligrams IM every 2 weeks. And I'm like, this just can't be a great way to live. And so I didn't know anybody that was taking testosterone. I'd been exposed to it in high school. And when I was living in Germany, I was exposed to testosterone a little bit when I was in the military. So I thought, well, I know this bodybuilder in town and he owns a gym. So next time I see him, I'm going to ask him what he does. And I ran into him. I'm like, hey, Larry, like you're on testosterone. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like he just didn't want to acknowledge what I was asking. And I said, listen, I've got this patient and he feels good, he feels bad. How do you take this stuff and not feel bad? And he goes, I don't know. But he gets his whey protein container and he unscrews the lid and he reaches in and he pulls out a sheet of paper and it's covered in protein powder. And he shakes it off and he hands it to me. And I just look at his list of medicines, testosterone, cypionate, 250 milligrams IM, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Testosterone enanthanate, nandrolone, anastrozole, Anavar. He had this whole list of meds. And I'm going, okay, so he's taking his cypionate 3 days a week. Let me think about this. So back then we had the physician's desk reference, which is this giant book, red book, that had all the medications in it. And so I'm like, let me go to cypionate and just read everything about cypionate. So reading about pharmacodynamics, pharmacokinetics, and everything. And I'm like, well, it kind of makes sense to take this 3 days a week, but not at that dosage. We can't do that. That's going to attract way too much attention and I'll probably get in trouble. So I turned the dosage way down to, I think at the time it was like 20 milligrams is what I was giving him Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And after about a month, following up with him, he's like, I feel good. I feel good all the time, like all the time. And I'm like, that's awesome. So let me talk to some of my mentors about this. And I bring this up to some of my mentors at the time. And remember, this is 1996, 97. And one of my mentors looks at me and goes, you're going to kill people.
Oh,
and I went,
really?
Oh, okay. What does he know that I don't know? I'm like, what do you know? Like, where are you coming up with this? Because I didn't read anything about there. There weren't like numerous studies out there at this time frame. And so I'm looking through things, and then I'm going to bed at night, staring at the ceiling, going, oh boy, what am I doing? Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? I don't know. And so then that started all the research, and then I'm looking for other docs that are prescribing in a different way. And again, there's no internet. It's not like, hey, let me get on and talk to this guy or that guy.
Yeah.
So I would bring it up at different medical conferences I would go to. There was no age management medical group. There wasn't, what's the other one? I can't think of it right now. But there weren't all these places where you can meet up and discuss ideas. And it was very, when you went to these medical conventions, it was almost procedural in nature. And there wasn't a lot of free thinking. So it's like, where do I turn? And slowly but surely over time, I started running into other doctors who were running into things that I was running into, and we would talk, and then we would get together and speak on things. And then you had different societies that started to show up, like Age Management Medical Group, for example. And then this is great because now we can get together and discuss these ideas. And then you had so many different pioneers in the field of age management medicine that were coming along and sharing ideas. And so it was really a process over time. But the initial event was back in the 90s, just some kid who got in a motorcycle accident that I felt bad for him because he didn't feel well. And that really started the whole cascade. I never thought I was going to end up in hormone management or that we'd be where we're at today. And it's been a process over 3 decades now.
Look, I get it. You are burnt out with today's healthcare systems and options that are being offered. Maybe you've gone the conventional medicine route and you've gotten basic lab testing done and everything came back as normal, but you still felt like something was truly wrong in your body and you still struggled to get better. This is why I'm so passionate about what we do at Rachel Shear Nutrition. We are not like a lot of the other functional medicine practices that are out there. We are not a one-size-fits-all program. The system that we developed was actually what I wish that I had when I was struggling with my own health issues, when I was on 5+ medications and I was being told that I needed to have my entire large intestine removed. I saw firsthand what it truly takes to heal. And it's not just extensive labs. Yes, those are important, but truly identifying why we have these problems in the first place, which means we want to get to know you. We want to get to know your lifestyle, your diet, your trauma history, the things that you walked through. We also bring in something called psychophysiology, which is the mind-body connection. And this is what it really means to have a holistic approach when it comes to healing. So if you're sick and tired of the conventional what approach without truly healing, and you're sick and tired of working with functional practitioners or just giving you cookie cutter plans, and you want to learn more about the RSN approach, you can book a free call by visiting rachelshear.com.
That's a powerful story of really seeing the impact that one hormone can make in somebody's life, and hearing you describe how it was just a night and day difference with this young man. I think that's so powerful for people to really understand. And I think a lot of people view testosterone, just kind of like what you said in the story, as just for building muscle. And of course, we know that testosterone, it's an anabolic hormone, androgenic, but it plays a role in skeletal muscle. But there's so much more that these hormones do in the body. In your opinion, what's the most dangerous misconception about testosterone that's currently affecting people's health decisions about getting on it?
That's a great question. The biggest misconception that still is out there, it's not as bad as it used to be, is that it contributes to heart attack and stroke, which is the exact opposite. The data shows, and it's proven time and time again, that it improves longevity and decreases your risk from major adverse cardiovascular events like heart attack and stroke. And then the other would be that it contributes to prostate cancer, which is just not true. And the data has proven that. Now, back in the 90s, early 2000s, oh boy, there were a lot of battles that had to be fought by a lot of people with a lot of studies over, like I said, the last 3 decades to disprove these myths. And it was really starting about 2016, 17, that there was some more clarity starting to come through and not taking so many hits. Because a lot of the work I had to do quietly and just help people behind the scenes because it was not well received. There were a lot of colleagues who would just give me the hairy eyeball over what I was doing, along with other colleagues of mine that were in that, venturing off into this field of optimizing hormones, of interventional endocrinology, let's call it. We're intervening earlier to help solve these endocrinopathies. So it's funny for me now here in 2020 to 2025, all these clinics that have opened up and since the start of the pandemic, when the rules were relaxed, and now you have this onslaught of non-medical people opening up clinics and pushing therapies, and they weren't there in the previous 2.5 decades of taking all the hits and kind of bulldozing the way through everything to where we're at now. And it's kind of nice to arrive at this position towards the end of my career, where it's like, oh, guess what? I was right.
Now.
And all the crap I took back in the 1990s and early 2000s, it's like, okay, well, it's nice to kind of be proven that our thinking was correct after all these years.
Yeah, so. And you're referring to how the FDA just recently removed the black box warning about testosterone and cardiovascular risk.
Mm-hmm. That's one of them. And the studies, there's been numerous randomized controlled double-blinded studies that have been repeated that shows, especially for middle-aged men, so men 40 and older that have even had a previous heart attack or stroke, being on testosterone therapy is cardioprotective, it's neuroprotective. And that goes for both men and women. And to have that validation finally, that's long overdue. That black box warning needed to come off a long time ago. But there was a war that was going on, in my opinion, a war against men's health, masculinity, the whole bit. And that was parcel of that whole.
I'm very curious about that.
Yeah. Well, we had an interesting bedfellow during the previous 4 years, and that was the transgender community, with testosterone being used to help convert young girls into boys, right? And there was a huge push in Congress and everything to make sure they had access to those hormones. And then you had the pandemic and being able to get controlled substances without a visit, that you could do telemedicine because of the pandemic. So there was these odd things that popped up, pandemic, transgender issues coming together. And all of a sudden it made it more accessible for middle-aged men to be able to get access to testosterone. So it's just an odd thing that was happening, because like here it's like, okay, you're talking about men who made testosterone as young men, but now they're aged men and they need to go on testosterone, but that's a problem. But it's not a problem to go ahead and give teenage girls who want to cut off their breasts testosterone. That's okay. And it was just a bizarre time in history of like, oh, we can load these young girls up on testosterone, but it's not okay to give it to men. And you can give obscene amounts to these girls to transition them, but it's gonna kill middle-aged men. It was just bizarre where the logic and thinking was going in that time frame.
And why do you think there's so much stigma?
The opposite of it too.
Like, despite the fact that there's so much evidence here, why do we see such resistance on this topic in particular?
Oh, I have my own thoughts as to why, which has to do with the war on masculinity, the social, political environment, the inclusion, people, all of it. I mean, we could go down that rabbit hole as to why, but yeah, the war on masculinity. Listen, I'm a Roman Catholic. I believe in conventional families, a husband, a wife, the husband being the leader of the family, taking it in a direction, responsible for his wife, responsible for his children. And that social political environment really wanted to pull apart the family. And the family is really, the family unit is what keeps not only neighborhoods strong, but cities, states, and countries strong, to have that traditional type environment. And it's okay. Listen, if you want to live a different way, that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. But when you start tearing down traditional values, traditional family values, and attacking it, I think that was all part of that whole war on masculinity. Because if you look at the data, on single parent homes, men with children and women with children, you can see very clearly in the data who when the children go astray, when there's the lack of that male masculine role model in the family. Because especially with boys need discipline, they need direction, they need challenge. And, they need both parents. They get from their mother, they get nurturing, they get empathy, they get growth and spiritual growth. And from the father, they get discipline, they get challenged, they get how to be a protector, a provider. So there's different elements that each parent provides. And in that family unit, when it's together, it really builds strength in the family and it builds strength in communities. And to me, it was all about tearing apart families and communities.
Tearing apart families and communities by the weakening of men.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
talking about how testosterone can be problematic when it's actually a natural hormone that we produce in the body. But we're also seeing an epidemic of low testosterone as well. So it's not only the conversation, which is changing, about testosterone causing cardiovascular risk issues and everything you just shared, but also we're just seeing men's testosterone declining more and more. Why is that?
That's a great question, and one I wish I knew the answer to. I don't think there's any one thing in particular. Being 59 years old, getting ready to turn 60, I can tell you in my age group and the men that I see that are older, it's not uncommon when I check their levels to see 800, 900, 1,000. And when I first started delivering hormones back in the 90s, that was what normal looked like. Very rarely did I see somebody 200, 300, 400. If I did, it was because there was some testicular trauma, they had cancer, radiation, chemotherapy, some chronic disease. They were on a medication that induced hypogonadism, like opioids, for example. So there was almost always an identifiable cause as to why there was the low testosterone. So it was very rare for me to see a man younger than 45 with low testosterone. And in my age group now, I get guys. I just had somebody a couple of weeks back who was 82 years old. He just wanted to get his hormones screened, which I thought was, okay, let's do it, right? And his testosterone came back like 892. And here's a guy in his 80s. So the question I have to ask is, and his wife's still alive. They're still married. They've been married over 40 years. They still have sex a couple times a week. Everything still works. So what's the difference? How is it, from my perspective, here's a man who's 20 years older than me. What's he doing, right? Well, he eats healthy. He exercises with some regularity, though he has slowed down. But what wasn't he exposed to? Just like what was I not exposed to growing up? Because I don't see that in my age group. Is it the advent of the use of birth control pills? What were men younger than me, let's say 40 and younger, what were they exposed to that I wasn't exposed to? So birth control pills in utero. What medications became more prevalent? Anxiolytics, antidepressants, ADD medications. What's present in the water supply that wasn't? And, back when I was a child, you didn't have voluminous amounts of estrogens or estrogenic chemicals in the water supply that you do now. So is that the difference? And I don't think it's one thing in particular. It's probably the preponderance of all the evidence coming together that it's the exposure to multiple things over time that's created this problem. Because now I see young men all the time in their late teens, early 20s, 30s with profoundly low testosterone. And I'm talking 150, 200, which makes no sense. Sometimes there's an identifiable cause. Number one would probably be smoking way too much marijuana, a lot of marijuana, which is really not good for the hypothalamic pituitary testicular axis. The other would be antidepressants, anxiolytics, and ADD medications, which also negatively impact the hypothalamic pituitary axis. And then probably chemical exposure, all the estrogenic chemicals that are in the food and water supply. So, but those would be the top items that I would list off. In Ohio, in this area, we do have a lot of lead that can be, iron in the water. So a lot of people have well water around here. And it's not unusual to find somebody that has really high iron levels, and it's due to high iron levels in their water supply.
So Lauren, I'm so excited to have you a part of Rachel Shear Nutrition, but what are some of the reasons why you wanted to join the Rachel Shear Nutrition team?
When I looked at the projections of where functional medicine is expected to go over the next few years, I mean, it's going to skyrocket, as well as telemedicine. So when I got to see, hey, this is an opportunity not just to be on the forefront of a conversation about the paradigm of healthcare changing in our nation today, but also a movement to equip those leaders who will lead the way. I mean, that's an incredibly exciting thing. So I'm excited to see what's ahead because, I mean, honestly, we're just getting started.
I know, we're just getting started, and it's so exciting to see how functional nutrition and functional medicine truly is the healthcare of the future. And I am so excited to see the amount of health coaches and dietitians, nurse practitioners, and nurses who are wanting to get into this field, who are wanting to truly make an impact. They're sick and tired of having only 15 minutes with clients who really don't actually want their advice, and to be able to also create the freedom that they truly want in their life as well, to create the impact and the income. So if you guys are listening to this and you want to learn more about how you can get in on functional nutrition and become certified with your background as a health coach or a practitioner, you can head over to rachelshear.com/certification and you can learn more about our certification process.
Big things ahead.
Big things ahead.
So I have a question for you. I want to pick your brain on. So I've worked with a lot of warriors, from special forces operators to first responders. And one pattern we continue to see is a significant drop in testosterone right after active duty. Can you explain what's taking place there? Because we think of our warriors as being these, testosterone-filled, aggressive. They're the epitome of it. But yet, time and time again, we see as soon as active duty is over, I mean, it's tanking, not by a little bit, but by extraordinary amounts. By a lot. So yeah. I would love to just hear what's happening there.
So a couple different things. And it depends on the individual, where they were deployed, what they were exposed to. So what have I seen in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, combat vets? And whether they were active duty, regular, or special operators, depending on what their mission was and what their job was over there. If I'll see a lot of chemical exposure. If it's not chemical exposure, it's repetitive gunfire and explosive trauma, or it's actual, having been shot or blowing up, something like that. So there's usually some identifiable cause. If it tends to be explosive in nature, the declination of hormones, usually they fall off in a very predictable pattern. So if you're dealing with traumatic brain injury, usually growth hormone falls off first. Then you'll see the gonadotropins, LH and FSH, fall off, which means the androgens then fall off, testosterone, DHT. Then you'll see thyroid fall off, and finally cortisol. And it's a very predictable pattern in post-traumatic brain injury. And you'll see it also in the civilian sector, in motorcycle accidents, car accidents, slip and falls, falling off roofs. So I always recommend at the time of injury getting a baseline profile right away, because it's usually in the 3 to 6 months after the traumatic event that you'll see the hormones decline in that fashion, and then you can start optimizing or replacing them as that's occurring. But with the vets, I see it all the time. It's very commonplace. Post-traumatic stress disorder, post-traumatic brain syndromes, very commonplace, and that declination of hormones is almost always very predictable. Well, then they'll stack on top of it. They go, and I'm not knocking the VA or anything, or any VA docs, but then they go to the VA. Then they usually get prescribed anxiolytics, antidepressants, opioids for all these other problems. And now they had the event itself, whether it was a counter coup injury, where the brain hits the inner table of the skull, whether it was a torsion injury because of an explosive blast passing through and the brainstem gets twisted. They'll end up with some kind of damage. And now they're given a medical therapy that compounds the problem. So now they're on medications that induce hypothalamic, pituitary dysfunction. So you're doing them even more of a disservice. So it's usually multifactorial.
Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And I read a study recently that said that the most veterans are on an average of 8 to 10 medications. And I mean, that causes all kinds of things. And there's another study too that showed that oftentimes just the training alone is enough wave blast exposure that you have TBI before you ever deploy. And so, you know, a lot of what we're trying to do in this conversation around TBI is to try and set baselines even prior to training, because we don't have a lot of baselines to work with. And I think that that TBI and the hormonal connection, we need a lot more conversation around specifically for warriors and warrior professions.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. On my one website, which is tbitreatmentcenters.com, right on the website, on the front page, we have a list of all the hormones that we want drawn. So if somebody's had an event, hey, get these hormones. If you haven't had an event, get these hormones so you know what your baseline looks like. But immediately after the event, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, those are the hormones that we look at and follow. So it's always a good idea to have a baseline, regardless. It's always good to do in the whole spectrum of all the things that you have under your control. One of those items is doing your diagnostics on an annual basis, regardless of your age, to do annual diagnostic studies. So getting your laboratory, your CBC, your Chem 21, taking a look at all your hormones, male or female, right? And maybe even looking at your lipid panels. And doing that on an annual basis so that over time you can track the changes that you're seeing in your laboratory parameters. And that's one of the elements when it comes to longevity that you can control, right? So when we look at it, sleep, exercise, restorative practice, diagnostics, nutrition, epigenetics, hormones, and supplements. Those are the items that are in our direct control, male or female, that we can manipulate and adjust. Everything else, you can forget about it. And out of those, the biggest is the first one I listed, which is sleep. And I should talk to Kristen about that, because the sleep. You know Kristen. So, 8 hours of regenerative, recuperative, restorative sleep. Sleep is the biggest factor, in my opinion, towards healthy aging and longevity. And all the studies show, just inadequate sleep on a semi-chronic basis is like being a shift worker working in the middle of the night. And one of the reasons I left the ER years ago is because of the shift work. It's working that either second shift or third shift, which is just so terrible for your hormones. So for that hypothalamic pituitary system, which is solar in nature and moves with the movement of the sun, it's like one of the worst things you can do is be a shift worker. So sleep, if you want healthy aging and longevity, get your sleep. Regenerative, recuperative, restorative sleep.
I had to start shifting my mindset around sleep, because I used to be that person who was like, how early can I wake up and I can get more things done? And after my bout of burnout, and actually I quit setting an alarm. That was one of the best things I ever did for my health. And I realized not everybody has the ability to not set an alarm in the morning. But when I was really making my healing and my health a top priority, not setting an alarm and just letting my body sleep until it was ready to get up, it made such a massive impact in my mental health, my physical health, my gut issues that I was previously experiencing. And I've had to since then reframe sleep as more of a business investment. It's part of the investments that I'm making into my business. And I actually have showed up that much more creative, that much more focused. And I so think that, it's such an underrated area for people to focus on. Everybody wants to ice bath their way to longevity or do all the saunas or cold plunges, but it's like sleep.
It's not, because it's not exciting.
Yeah.
So everybody, and how do I put this? Everybody's looking for the next great thing, that there's going to be some massive discovery that's going to make the difference. When in reality, it's the foundational items of health and wellness that are going to give you the best shot. If there isn't some magic pill that you're going to take that's going to make all the difference. Sleep, exercise, restorative practices, doing your diagnostics on an annual basis, nutrition, epigenetics, hormones, and supplements. none of that, is, especially sleep. You're not be like, oh my God, it's sleep. It's so exciting.
It's not the sexy
But
answer.
it's incredibly
I think sleep
important.
is very sexy. I love sleep now. It's
Make
my
sleep
favorite
sexy
thing
again.
to do. I love my sleep.
I love my sleep too. And letting the sun naturally wake you up. So I'm not big on like closing all the blinds. I want the sun to come in. I want it to hit the 2 receptors in the front of my face to get to the middle of my brain and wake me up.
What about birds waking you up? My birds wake me up far before the sun wakes me up.
Oh yeah. Right? Yeah. Got a lot of those.
What would you say as far as longevity goes? What is the thing that people are wasting money on that everyone says like, this is the hottest thing. This is going to, create something, but you see it and you go, we just talked about supplements. Okay.
Supplements. They come in with bags
Yeah.
of supplements. And it's not unusual for me to see somebody on 50, 60 supplements a day.
Wow. 50, 60
And you're going,
a day?
and they're like, I'm never hungry. I'm like, surprise.
And neglecting
But,
sleep and
listen,
nutrition, but
right,
on all the
they-
supplements.
Yeah, let's skip over exercise. Let's skip over sleep. Let's skip over nutrition and healthy eating habits
It's that quick fix,
and
that
mental
supplement.
wellness. But if there's some supplement that I can take. And you can read any magazine. You can pick up Life Extension, and you could open it up, and you're like, oh my gosh, a blueberry extract. I need that. Well, of course you need that.
That's
They
what's
write those
missing in my life.
articles to make you go, oh my God, I've got that. I need that, and that's the thing that's going to fix me. And so the overuse of supplementation is probably, in my opinion, one of the worst things that you can do, because you can actually put more stress on your body trying to process all of this stuff. So when it comes to supplements and supplementing, you want to be strategic about what your body needs. What are Lauren's issues? What are Rachel's issues? Because what Lauren may need isn't what you may need necessarily, Rachel. And so how do we be strategic about that? And we do that through testing. And through testing and through epigenetic testing, we can find out what your body needs more than somebody else. Let's say, for example, we run a bunch of cardiovascular tests and we find out that you have a significant increased risk of cardiovascular disease. We can gear our supplementation to help reduce the impact of potential cardiovascular disease in the future. And what specific antioxidants do we need to be using? Do we want to be using alpha lipoic acid? Do we want to be using vitamin C? Do we want to be using lysine? Are we going to look at stronger medicinal therapies? So we want to be strategic for what the individual needs and just not shotgun a bunch of supplements for the sake of taking, well, it's supposed to be good for you and healthy, so let me take it.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing that I definitely see with my practice, as well as people coming in with these big bags. And then you're running testing on them too. And then they're on all of these supplements with also the testing that they're getting done. And then wanting to know what other supplements they want to get on. And, that's what also we're seeing quite a bit in the functional medicine space. And maybe you can agree with this, is now functional medicine is becoming a lot more well known. But we're really just seeing these practitioners who are running more extensive tests than the conventional route, but then just putting people on these laundry lists of supplements without necessarily addressing some of the core fundamental areas, like you mentioned, the basics of sleep, nutrition, exercise,
nutrition, right? And none of those things, listen, you and I, we're on the same page. I like sleep. So sleep is, I enjoy going to bed early. I like getting up early. I like to go to bed somewhere about 10:30 at the latest. And I usually get up around 5:30.
That's late for me. I'm a 8:30, 9 o'clock girl. I'm real early.
So you're like you're a Mark Wahlberg.
I'm an old lady. I'm an old lady in a young body.
Go to bed at 8:30, get up at 3:30.
I love my sleep. No, 5:30. I do really great on 8 to 9 hours. 10, I'm feeling amazing. Is there such thing as too much sleep? I'm sure, but
maybe.
But if my body needs it,
it needs it.
Yeah, exactly. I did have a question, because I know we hit a lot on testosterone for men. I'd love to also hit on testosterone for women, because I know a lot of the listeners may be thinking, all right, testosterone, yeah, it's very beneficial for men. We're seeing the epidemic of low testosterone. But I'd love if you could speak on the importance of optimizing testosterone for women, because I also see quite a bit in my practice too, women who are getting their hormones tested, and maybe they've even gone the conventional medicine route, and they're at like don't even think it's registering on the labs. It's like that less than sign. I'm sure you've seen this before, where like there's not even a testosterone level, or I usually will see women around the range of 10, testosterone levels. But what would you say is a good testosterone range for a woman to be at, and the importance of testosterone for women?
As long as it's not causing any unwanted side effects, I like to see female testosterone levels in the upper quartile. So as long as they can tolerate it without getting any of the unwanted side effects. So increased hair growth, deepening of voice, because we don't want that, clitoromegaly, which can be a problem. So we want to stay away from any of the unwanted side effects. So where that optimum dose lies is independent with each individual. So what Lauren could tolerate might not be what Rachel could tolerate. So we have to tailor therapy to benefit the individual. From the female perspective, you guys have other things you have to worry about that men in general don't. And the largest one, besides heart disease, which most women don't truly understand how bad heart disease is for women, especially postmenopausal compared to premenopausal, right? So premenopausal heart attack and stroke rate in females is about 1 in 32. So it's, not bad. But postmenopausal, it's 1 in 2.8.
Really?
So when you go from premenopause, perimenopause to postmenopausal, your heart attack and stroke rate really climbs. And then osteopenia, osteoporosis. Why? We're losing the beneficial protection of estrogen. So estrogen gets converted into estrogen-free fatty acids in the liver, and those estrogen-free fatty acids in the liver help keep the matrix metalloproteinases in check, in particular MMP9. So for women, you're losing the beneficial protection of 17-beta estradiol in the conversion into estrogen-free fatty acids, and you're losing the benefit from a neurovascular standpoint, a cardiovascular standpoint, but then bone and mineral metabolism. And bone and mineral metabolism then declines. So now we have to start worrying about osteopenia, osteoporosis. We have low testosterone levels. So now we're dealing with sarcopenia. So we're having that decay and decline of the body, which then leads to hip fractures, spinal fractures. And we all know somebody, it's like, oh, Aunt Martha, she fell, she broke her hip. 6 months later, she died from pneumonia because of the immobility or from a urinary tract infection. So in the longevity game for women, it's about cardiovascular disease, osteopenia, osteoporosis, then the cancers, breast cancer, colon cancer. Those are kind of the big ones right there. But testosterone is incredibly important for women, and it usually starts to decline about the mid-30s. It's independent in each woman, but about mid-30 you'll start to see a decline. So you can start to add back in testosterone to help get the cardiovascular, neurovascular protection, osteopenia, osteoporosis. If you want to add bone mass to bone, testosterone, the king is growth hormone, but testosterone is a close second to growth hormone into maintaining bone and mineral mass in an aging female. Then there's muscle mass. So being able to maintain appropriate muscle mass, because losing muscle mass leads to insulin resistance, leads to putting on more body fat, and being able to get your butt out of the chair unassisted. So being able to stand up.
The basics.
Yeah, that's the basics. But that 1.4 Newton kilograms of force to overcome gravity to get your butt out of a chair, as you're aging, the goal is to be able to perform your activities of daily life unassisted so that you can go about your day doing your things. Well, if you can't get your butt out of a chair, you're going to end up in a skilled nursing facility of some sort. So when it comes to longevity, it's being able to have, a powerful core, powerful muscles, decrease muscle wasting, maintain muscle mass, and maintaining your strength and maintaining good skeletal, bone structure. So testosterone is incredibly important for women as well. Now, men may feel testosterone more. Women definitely feel thyroid. Thyroid's incredibly important, both for men and women, but women feel the lack of thyroid.
Yeah. Women are way more prone to develop thyroid issues than men.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
What would you say is like a sign that someone is, like you said, it declines in the mid-30s? What is the signs and symptoms? What are you going to start feeling to notice that that's
generally
happening?
for women, women don't feel testosterone like men feel testosterone. So it might be a perception of like, geez, I can't seem to hold on to muscle mass. I'm getting a little bit more flabby. I don't maybe feel as energetic. Maybe libido is a little bit off. It usually tends to be a weight issue for women. Like, geez, I can't seem like I gained 5 pounds and I don't know why I can't get rid of it.
I always had to work on lowering my testosterone. I think we had a conversation about that at Dr. Gabrielle Lyons' event.
Yeah.
I noticed when mine's getting up high, and I think mine's more stress, but I'll start to notice it in my skin. And then I'll run some labs and I'll see my DHEA. It's always high. It's always high. And then sometimes my testosterone naturally will be around 70, but I've seen it get even higher before. And so I one time had a physician put me on testosterone, but it made sense at the time when my testosterone was low. I was competing in bodybuilding and I would think I was at maybe like 10%. Everything declines at that. And so he put me on testosterone and I had like teenage acne all over again. I did not love that.
Yeah, so I see a lot of young women where competitive bodybuilding, bikini competitions, bodybuilding competitions, not the best nutrition, maybe some alcohol, really putting stress on the body, on birth control pills, and then it creates the perfect metabolic storm to wreak havoc on the body, to cause gut issues, and that can be the slippery slope to a lot of different problems. So very commonplace. And when you're on birth control pills, wipes your testosterone levels out.
My SHGB was through the roof too high.
Through the roof, testosterone bottoms out, copper levels go way up.
Yeah.
And then, boyfriends and husbands are trying to, understand your 81 different emotions that you have by 10 o'clock in the morning. It's like, wait, what's going on?
And that's where, too, I'm all for testosterone therapy and hormone replacement therapy, but also we have to look at the root of the problem. And if somebody's under massive metabolic stress, I know that was what I was under when I was competing. And, we can really work on that. Because we're not going to have just the testosterone being low as the issue, right? We're going to probably see a lot of other problems too as a byproduct of this metabolic stress that, these people are experiencing. Like you said, the gut issues, probably thyroid levels are declined. I had hypothyroidism. And so we start to see just the accumulation of all of these symptoms and side effects. And so that's where addressing some of these more root issues, and then if needed, getting on hormone replacement therapy. But once I worked on improving my nutrition and adding in more food back into my diet, prioritizing sleep and recovery, and I put on around 20 pounds from when I was competing, my hormone levels were great. And now I have high testosterone.
Everything came back.
Did not even need
What do you
Look
know?
at that. Yeah. Well, before we wrap up, we'd love to know your 3 keys for anyone listening who wants to optimize their hormones and longevity. What would you say are 3 non-negotiable practices or principles they should begin implementing today?
Number 1 is sleep.
Yeah.
Number 2 is exercise. And number 3 is nutrition. Those 3 foundational items you should be thinking about on a daily basis. You really want to have that on autopilot. With sleep, having good sleep hygiene, a regular schedule, cool, dark room, comfortable. Like, spend money on a really good mattress. Spend money on really great sheets. Spend money on really good pillows. Like, your home and your bedroom in particular, and your bed should be your sanctum sanctorum. Your place where you go to it and your body can just let all the stress out and you can rest. And I would, not hesitate to spend money on great sheets, great pillows, great mattress, and anything that furnishes the bedroom to make it your place, your environment to de-stress and to get that regenerative, recuperative, restorative sleep on a regular basis. And then exercising in an efficient, effective manner based on your age group. How a 20-something, 30-something would be exercising is going to be a little bit different than a 50 or 60-year-old. What is it that you need to maintain? And make sure that you spend money on gaining knowledge in exercise science. What's going to work best for you? What works best for Rachel might not work best for Lauren. There's going to be individual differences. What should your program look like? Alternating programs on a regular basis. And then nutrition. Really spending some time understanding what works best with your body and rotating through those nutritional plans. Most people do best on a Mediterranean dietary plan. And I'm not saying that you're not eating enough. You're definitely eating enough. But Mediterranean is, in my opinion, the best way to go. Healthy fats, lean proteins, lots of different fruits and low glycemic fruits and vegetables. Eating in a Mediterranean lifestyle, plenty of those healthy fats, decreased incidence of cardiovascular disease, both male and female. And then having plans that you rotate in and out of based on what you're doing so that you have some freedom and flexibility. But sleep, exercise, nutrition, and understanding how those impact your overall health and wellness for however many decades you get to walk God's green earth. That's where I would focus the most. And then stress reduction. So what can you do to relieve stress? Tai Chi, yoga, meditation, prayer, whatever your thing is. Getting your annual diagnostics, doing your studies, and age appropriate. As you get older, there's other studies you need to have done. And then maybe some epigenetic testing, optimizing your hormones, and being strategic with your supplementation. Those are the foundational items I would be looking at. Because you have control. Everyone has
Absolutely.
control of those items.
Something we can all do.
You don't.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love it. Well, my takeaway from this is that I get to buy new sheets and more pillows, doctor's orders.
My favorite sheets are actually at Macy's.
Really?
It's a hotel collection. Oh my God.
I love
they're
that.
so delicious.
Oh, delicious sheets.
buttery
Okay,
best.
that's my homework now. I buy delicious sheets.
Yes. Yeah. I love getting in those things. It's just like, oh my God, those feel so good. Yeah.
Dr. Rob, where
Good
can
sheets.
people find you and learn more about everything that you're doing?
I'm easy to find at ReNueHealth.com, and it's spelled ReNue health.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for
This has
sharing
been an
your
incredible
wealth of
conversation.
knowledge.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's like perfect. You guys are dressed in your master's outfit.
We should have coordinated with you.
I think it's over. Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us
Thanks so
on
much.
Unlocked with Rachel and Lauren.